So fun fact, back in the day, I actually was a Girl Scout. I think I was a Girl Scout for maybe like a year, maybe not even that long, because I kind of sucked as a Girl Scout. I did. Listen, I did the badges and the things that they wanted us to do. I never really enjoyed it. I went on the retreat, but the thing is, like, all my friends were doing it, and I'm also fairly certain that my mother really wanted to volunteer and just like she needed to drag me along to have a reason to volunteer with the Girl Scouts and have that community, whatever. So I actually do have a very limited amount of experience with the Girl Scouts, even though I rather sucked as an actual Girl Scout. But you know what? I mean, honestly, I'm not all that disappointed that I didn't get to have that scouting experience now that I see that the Girl Scouts, at least in Northern California, have gone full on woke, at least in regards to their latest volunteer manual. So I just want to take a quick look at what has been approved for the Girl Scouts of Northern California. What are the primary values that the Girl Scouts are trying to just like, really instill in their volunteers and in their scouting community? We're going to read through some of this. But before we get into that, listen, folks, I hate to keep beating this flipping dead horse, but YouTube, again, is really effing with the channel. I mean, they're doing this actually to a lot of conservatives right now. I am not the only one that's experiencing this. Essentially, I'm kind of like bleeding YouTube subscribers. So listen, I have no issue if people legitimately think, hey, I'm not interested in a thing Carlin has to say anymore. The election is over, whatever. I want to get back to real life. Cool, man. I totally get that. But I just want to ask if you think you may have been subscribed to this channel at some point in the past, just take a quick look down there at that subscribe button just to make sure that you are still subscribed. And if you are new here, I do daily content around news, politics, culture, basically whatever I find interesting to talk about. And if you think that might be something you're interested in, go ahead, click that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, maybe leave a comment, tell me what things you'd like me to cover, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. It helps me grow the channel and to really, frankly, stick it to YouTube when they're meddling when they should not be. All right, let's read about what the Girl Scouts of Northern California are doing. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I do just want to, read a couple passages to give you the basic gist. We'll start off right at the top here. How to explore this policy. Keep an open mind and an open heart. Some of the ideas we present may be new to you, and that's a good thing. At the Girl Scouts, we encourage everyone in our community to discover more about ourselves, connect with people who are different, and take action to make the world a better place for all people. The policy explains how we do that together. Now, listen, there is something to be said for becoming comfortable being uncomfortable. There's a lot of reasons you actually want to learn how to do that because, listen, when we push outside our comfort zone, when we try new things, when we expand our mind, when we learn new things, inherently that's going to be emotionally uncomfortable and it's going to be physically uncomfortable. However, anytime I see that at the very top of something, you're about to be brainwashed into something. You know that they're about to use this whole document to try to convince you that something is true when it might be true and it might not be true. And so just as a general rule, we always have to make sure that we're on our toes, we're really checking in with ourselves and say, does this seem right? And there is a difference from the discomfort that you experience when you're learning something new and the discomfort that you experience when you are being convinced of something that you don't believe is correct. There is a different feeling. The only way to learn that is really by checking in with yourselves, making sure you learn how that feeling shows up in your body. This is a great time to use different mindfulness techniques just to check in, to say, ooh, I like this feeling, I don't like this feeling, why do I feel this way? Try to approach it from a non-judgmental perspective and really question, is this making me uncomfortable because I'm growing and I'm learning something new? Or is this making me uncomfortable because it's wrong and I don't agree with it? Again, those are two different things. Let's keep going. Dig deeper. This policy, together with volunteer essentials, blah, 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 may help you understand how we nurture belonging in the Girl Scouts. Ask for help. Do you need information translated into the language you speak? Well, we're working on that. That's not really that big of a deal. Number four, notice gender pronouns. Because the youth, volunteers, and staff at Girl Scouts express their gender identities in different ways, you'll notice we use a variety of gender pronouns throughout this policy, including she, her, he, him, and they, them. When we talk about girls in this policy, we are referring to any girl-identified youth, including cisgender girls and transgender girls. When we talk about you in this policy, we're referring to adults who volunteer. Now, I want to just say something right off the top. I don't actually have an issue with kids that are experimenting, or maybe not experimenting is the wrong word, kids that are discovering their gender identity. I don't have an issue with kids that might be trans, might think that they're trans, participating in Girl Scouts. I really don't. These are kids. These are kids. Now, I don't want parents influencing that, but they're kids. And there's absolutely no reason that they shouldn't be able to play together nicely. I mean, in my ideal world, frankly, the Boy Scouts, well, the Boy Scouts aren't even called the Boy Scouts anymore. They're called the Scouts now. But I don't know why we're just not integrating the two entirely if this is the direction that the Girl Scouts are going to go. And I think that that would be perfectly fine. So I have absolutely no issue at all with trans girls. You know, I do have an issue with there being medical transition this young, but that's a different story for a different day. If they're just, they're discovering who they are, they want to have this experience, I have absolutely no issue with that, and that is not the point that I'm making. And frankly, I don't think that we should be getting children caught up in these games that adults like to play. What we're exploring here in this volunteer policy, this is a game that adults are playing to make themselves feel better. Kids should not be getting wrapped up in this. Kids should be allowed to be kids. They should be allowed to have their friends. They should be allowed to try different things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right, let's keep going. Now, here's a nice little bulleted list that I found was just like really interesting. Girl Scout community values. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Becoming an anti-racist organization. We're going to talk more about that. They have an equal opportunity who can be a Girl Scout. LGBTQIA plus inclusion. People with disabilities and neurodivergence. Again, like some of this stuff I have issues with, some of this stuff I don't. The biggest thing I have an issue with is becoming an anti-racist organization, because we all know what that's code for. And in fact, we can just scroll down here to find out specifically what they mean by that. Volunteering with us is a commitment to the practice of anti-racism. So, the Girl Scouts of Northern California have just said, you do not have a place with us unless you are going to adhere to a freak cult ideology that teaches that white people are inherently racist. And watch this, they're actually going to demand that anyone who volunteers with the Girl Scouts accept let me clarify. Any white person that volunteers with the Girl Scouts is just going to have to accept that they are a racist person. We are offering ongoing tools and trainings for all of our participants, volunteers, including board members and staff, and to participate effectively in this work, which takes a lifetime and is never done. Systemic racism affects everyone, requires care and commitment to dismantle. If you are someone who is not open to actively doing anti-racism work, our organization is not a good fit for you. Okay, well, I really do wonder what the demographic makeup of the Girl Scouts is, because to me, this is just my perception, but to me, the Girl Scouts would be something that I would actually think might attract a more conservative audience. Perhaps because it's like a wholesome activity where you get together, you do archery, you bake cookies, you learn how to sew, all this good stuff. Those are wholesome family activities. Who do we think that's going to be more likely to attract? People on the left or people on the right? This is not even that hard to see how this is going to go. I digress. Let's see. Okay, so here is their code for equity and belonging. I discover our world was built on structural racism. I recognize there are intersections between racism and all forms of oppression. I acknowledge that white people benefit from unearned privilege based on skin color. I honor the legacy of freedom fighters who came before me. I learned key terms to empower myself as a student of social justice. Okay, now we're saying that, if to be involved in the Girl Scouts, you got to be a student of social justice. I'm telling you, man, I would not have my kid involved in this. Absolutely flipping not. My kid would be white and therefore would be taught by these brainwashed volunteers that they're racist. I wouldn't expose them to that. I don't have a kid, but in the land of make-believe in which I do, and maybe perhaps someday will, I wouldn't do any of this stuff. connect with hearts wide open. Except for people who disagree with us, they do not get our hearts wide open. I value relationships with people who are different than me. I know hurting hurts, even if I didn't mean to do it. So what they're saying there is that if you hurt someone's feelings, you're responsible for it, and it doesn't actually matter what the truth is. All that matters is the hurt feeling. I believe you if you tell me you've been harmed. I can tolerate feeling uncomfortable. Well, I learn. I take the risks and have courageous conversations. And then taking action to make the world better for all people. I center and nurture the leadership of people of color. I listen and take in feedback as a gift. I speak up about racism and all forms of oppression. I work to change policies to be racially equitable. I take responsibility for things I say and do, of course, unless, people disagree with you on that. And then lastly, I just want to point out this section, who can be a Girl Scout? Our Girl Scout program is for any girl-identified youth, including cisgender girls and transgender girls. Each child and family is in charge of how they identify, and their gender identities may change over time. For example, if a girl who has previously been a Girl Scout begins to identify as gender nonconforming, gender creative, or non-binary, she will continue to be welcome at Girl Scouts. We are loyal to the children and families who participate in our program and are evolving our inclusive practices all the time. Now, I also think that's interesting when compared to the next paragraph, or really the first sentence. Girl Scouts is a program that honors and celebrates the evidence-based need girls have to be together without boys present. Now, listen, I said at the top, I don't think that kids should be dragged into the affairs of adults. I don't. I have no issue with any identification of any sort that wants to be a Girl Scout. Because again, in the Girl Scouts, you're doing things that really have absolutely nothing to do with anything politics related. You're learning how to set up a freaking tent and, I don't know, cook or like whatever. I don't even know what the badges are these days. I'm sure the badges have completely changed. I'm sure there's some sort of social justice anti-racism badge now. But anyway, regardless, kids should be allowed to be kids. I have no issue with any of this, but it does seem to be a little contradictory to say that there's evidence-based needs that girls have to be together without boys being present. And in the same sentence, you're welcoming someone who may identify as a boy into the Girl Scouts. I mean, again, I don't really have an issue with it, but it really just seemed contradictory to me. All right, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I just think it's important to call this nonsense out, that the Girl Scouts have gone extra woke. I will link to this full document in the description below if you want to take a look at it for yourself. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.